Kevin Block and Jordan Spendlove dedicated their Saturday afternoon on the 18th of February 1989 to rabbit hunting around the Earl of Stradbroke's estate in Wangford, located in North Suffolk, England, off the A12 road. As they were heading home, Kevin noticed what he initially believed to be a shop mannequin lying in a ditch. Curiosity led him to nudge it with his gun, only to discover the grim reality. It was a decomposing body of a woman. The initial hurdle faced by the police was determining the identity of the woman found in the ditch. The body had been subject to predation by wild animals, and her appearance did not correspond to any of the missing women in Suffolk. Consequently, the authorities widened their search efforts, and soon the body was identified as Jeanette Kempton, who had been missing for 16 days. On the morning of Thursday, February 2nd, 1989, Jeanette Kempton's day began in a routine manner in the district of Brixton, located in South London. The 31-year-old woke up and engaged in conversation with her two teenage sons, bidding them farewell as they headed off to school. Jean, as she was known to friends and loved ones, resided in a home within Brixton's Myatt's Fields Council estate, cohabiting with her sons and her ex-husband, Paul. Simultaneously, she had initiated a romantic involvement with Barry Coleman, a married man who was 2 decades her senior. On that fateful Thursday, the last day she was seen alive, Paul happened to have the day off from work. Together, Jeanette and Paul undertook several tasks, including a shopping excursion along Brixton Road. Their errands culminated at 12:30 p.m. when they arrived at their local establishment, the Loughborough Hotel, which Jeanette frequently visited with friends, who described her as the life of the party. The pub gradually filled with patrons, and Barry eventually joined the pair. Having received his redundancy pay, Barry loaned some money to Jeanette. Following this, Paul departed the pub, leaving Jeanette to continue her evening with Barry over drinks. Around 6 p.m, Jeanette and Barry made a visit to a nearby florist to collect a wreath adorned with red and white flowers for a friend's upcoming funeral, an event Jeanette intended to attend the following day. After returning to the Loughborough for another round, Jeanette expressed a desire to go to a different pub, while Barry, on the other hand, preferred to conclude the evening. The pair left the Loughborough at approximately 7:15 p.m. Subsequently, a witness had observed Jeanette, clearly inebriated, entering Barry's vehicle. Contrary to this account, Barry refuted the statement, asserting that Jeanette had consumed a substantial amount of alcohol throughout the afternoon and evening. In fact, she was reportedly in such an inebriated state that standing became a challenge. At the Loughborough Hotel, presently housing flats and an art gallery in the London district, Jeanette reportedly consumed an amount equivalent to 11 glasses of whisky, which is akin to 5.5 pints. Barry claimed to have extended an offer to drive Jeanette home, yet she declined the offer. Barry recounted that the final glimpse he had of Jeanette was her walking down the street towards another pub, clutching the wreath in her hand. She never made it to the pub. Kevin Block, one of the men who found Jeanette's body 16 days later, described the scene. Her top was open and there was a scratch across her chest. Her calves had been eaten away and the meat off her fingers and face too, but her eyeballs were still there. Many of her personal possessions were absent at the scene, including her coat, shoes, jewellery and purse. The funeral wreath was also missing. The pathologist who carried out the post-mortem identified a significant head injury, indicating that it likely occurred 48 hours before she was asphyxiated. This timeline suggested an act of violence shortly after she encountered her killer. The condition of her body further implied an extended period in the ditch, pointing to the conclusion that she was killed and disposed of within a few days of her initial disappearance. Unfortunately, the police were unsuccessful in locating the murder weapon. Further investigations revealed sightings of 2 suspicious vehicles. Between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on February 5th, a dark-hued rental van displaying a London phone number was observed making a turn onto Middle Barn Lane, a rural path in Wangford. The van had a lofty roof, absence of side windows and 2 smoked glass windows at the rear. On the morning of February 6th, an estate worker named Leslie Fairs encountered a white saloon car. In the vehicle, he noted 2 unfamiliar individuals, one of whom was a woman resembling Janette, and she was occupying the passenger seat. The witness told the Eastern Daily Press that he was 100% certain that the woman was Jeanette Kempton. At approximately 11:30 a.m. that same day, another resident reported hearing screams emanating from a location known as Church Farm, situated approximately 400 yards from where Janette's body was eventually found. Unfortunately, the screams were overshadowed by blaring music being played in the vicinity. Janette was not actually reported as a missing person for a week, despite having not turned up at her friend's funeral on the 3rd of February. Her ex-husband, Paul, initially was not concerned, as Janette would tend to go out and spend time with friends for potentially days at a time. Her current partner, Barry, visited her property on the 7th of February to collect the money he had lent her. However, he was puzzled when it appeared that she was not home. The BBC programme Crime Watch aired an appeal in May of 1989. However, this turned up next to no new information in relation to the case. One theory suggests that she might have voluntarily disappeared with an acquaintance, or in her intoxicated state, encountered a stranger and vanished with them. Muggings had occurred on the street where the Loughborough was located. However, on the day Janette vanished, no witnesses reported anything out of the ordinary. Many thought it was peculiar, however, that Janette's body was found 118 miles from her home, and police struggled to identify reasons for this. Over the course of the initial investigation, police gathered approximately 400 statements and over 3,500 inquiries were conducted. Police believed that the person responsible for the death of Janette was likely very familiar with the area where her body was found. The hunt was on for police to try and narrow their search for suspects. A man named Anthony Gilby became associated with the murder due to a peculiar arrest. He was under surveillance in a cubicle by police who were suspicious that he was taking some time, but also he had been wearing unusual attire. He was wearing stockings to help with circulation in his legs due to thrombosis, and as a precaution to make sure the stockings stayed secure, he wore a corset with straps beneath his clothes. He explained upon his arrest for gross indecency he had been recovering from surgery on his bladder, which meant he spent longer than the average person on the toilet. Authorities also charged him with the murder of Jeanette Kempton. However, this charge was dropped the following day. In total, there were 5 individuals under suspicion. While the police never publicly disclosed their identities, both her ex-husband Paul and boyfriend Barry were interviewed by law enforcement before being excluded as suspects. Witnesses confirmed that Janette tended to have many lovers, and occasionally police had been called about various incidents. Despite exploring many paths of investigation, police never gathered enough evidence to arrest or charge anybody in relation to Janette's death. Chris Clark, a former police officer specialising in cold cases, has drawn a connection between Janette's vanishing and the Suffolk serial killer Steve Wright. Clark emphasises that the perpetrator would need to be familiar with Suffolk to discreetly dispose of Janette's body in such an isolated location, all while having ties to South London. Steve Wright fulfills both criteria, as he was employed at a South London pub during Janette's disappearance, specifically the White Horse in Chislehurst, approximately 10 miles from Brixton. Moreover, he had previous residency in Suffolk and was acquainted with the A12 area. Wright's modus operandi also aligns with Janette's case, as evidenced by the killings of 5 prostitutes in Ipswich in 2006. Like Janette, his victims were vulnerable women whom he targeted, subsequently strangling and discarding their bodies in rivers or fields. Notably, he carried out these crimes while the victims were under the influence of substantial drug doses. Wright's ex-wife, Diane Cole, said in 2019 that she believes he was responsible for Janette's murder. There is no evidence, however, to back up this theory, therefore police haven't ventured down that path of inquiry. Upon examination of the case, an individual with close ties to Janette has been recognised as a person of interest. An examination of the forensic evidence has been conducted, and the results are currently under analysis to guide the next steps in advancing the case. Andy Guy, the Major Crime Review and Unsolved Case Manager for Suffolk Police, mentioned that the case underwent reviews in 2009 and 2016 and suggested it would benefit from another comprehensive forensic examination. Anyone possessing information related to the homicide of Jeanette Kempton is urged to get in touch with the Major Investigations Team at 01953 423 819.